Hello and welcome to Better Together with Larry and Andrea Hanner. We just wanted to start this podcast because we've been married for 20 years, and that hasn't always been all ups, right? Just like anything, just like any relationship, there's going to be ups and downs in it, and we're by no means marriage experts, but we've over the past 20 years, we've experienced about everything that a marriage can, from financial troubles to arguments to trust issues, just about anything a marriage can go through, we've gone through it. So we've feel like we've been there, and this is just us talking about our marriage and the importance of putting Jesus into that marriage to keep it strong. What I found is that whenever we have had troubles, it's when there's an absence or when there's a lack of us focusing on Jesus in our marriage. And when Jesus isn't in charge, you start to see it. Things start to happen that reminds you, hey, you're not focusing on the right things. You need to always put Jesus first in your marriage, in your life, and everything else kind of falls into place. But when you start straying from that, that's when you start running into some issues. So I'd like to introduce to you my wife, Andrea Hanner. Andrea, say hi.
Hello.
And so Andrea has recently gone through a complete hysterectomy. She's still trying to recover from that. That's why she's wearing the belly band there. That's nicely decorated. Yeah, it's nicely decorated with some art. Yeah, it looks great. But so Andrea, I know we've talked about this, and we've talked about what we were going to focus on for this podcast, and I know we had the conversation about how Jesus has to drive it. So what are your thoughts on that, where Jesus has to come first in the marriage?
Well, last night I was having trouble sleeping. Night sweats and pain. If you had a hysterectomy, you know what I'm talking about. And so when I'm laying there at night and I can't sleep, I start praying and talking to God. And he started talking to me, and he told me that he needs to be the third wheel in a relationship. And at first I'm thinking, third wheel, okay. When you say third wheel, everybody always thinks that's bad. You don't want to be the third wheel tagging along, with a couple. But he showed me the vision of a tricycle. When your kids start to learn how to ride a bike, you don't throw them on a bicycle with two wheels. They're going to fall and they're going to get hurt. And he showed me that was the same thing with a marriage. You need to be on a tricycle. And this tricycle has a big wheel in the front, and that big wheel is Jesus.
Amen.
And the two wheels in the back are the husband and wife, and they're equal size. And that to me shows that the husband and wife are equal in partnership. And you got to follow Jesus. He is going to guide you. He's going to keep you and your marriage from falling, and he's going to keep you on the right course. But if you try to just jump on that two-wheel bicycle, your marriage, it's going to be hard, and more than likely you're going to crash. And we've seen that.
And I like the analogy. So when it's just a husband and a wife on a two-wheel bicycle, right, they're both trying to drive. They're both trying to control it, and they're liable to get wobbly and go off course. But on that tricycle, where Jesus is the big wheel and the husband and the wife are the smaller wheels in the back, the equal size wheels, it's very important what she said there about the equal size wheels, because you also can't have a lopsided tricycle. You can't have one wheel in the back bigger than the other wheel, right? You're gonna lean, you're gonna tilt. If Jesus isn't driving your life, you're gonna have an unequal an unequal tricycle, those wheels, one wheel is going to try to be bigger than the other one. But if Jesus is driving your life, that equality, that being equal to your partner is not going to be an issue. When Jesus is driving, you'll find yourself as equals, and you're not competing. You're not in competition. You're working together to drive the thing forward, right? So I love that analogy. I'll put a picture. You'll see a picture when we're talking of a tricycle up here, but to me, it's the perfect analogy. When she told me that, I knew that came from God, right? So it was just it was the perfect analogy for what we're talking about today. And I know Andrea has some scriptures that she wants to share, and these are very good. And she's just been really focused on this and in touch with God. So
The first one goes along with, having three there. It's Ecclesiastes 4:12. It says, "A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but two can stand back to back and conquer. Three are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken."
yeah, and in that, so there is three people in a marriage. There's you, your spouse, and then there's God. And when that's all braided together, that's a strong bond that can't easily be broken. Somebody's got to work really hard to break a bond, and if one of those strands is God, then they're not going to break that, right? If you have God as that third strand in your marriage, nobody can break that, as long as you remember that God is in charge and God's driving it. I love that.
And the other one I had was Ephesians 4:26. "Be angry and do not sin, and do not let the sun go down on your anger." And this was something that when we first got married, we promised each other that we would not go to bed angry with each other, that we would always try to work out our problems. I can't say that we've always done this, but I think for the most part we have. There's been times that we haven't, and I think that has been the times that, we've kind of been away from God, and that's the times that I think our marriage has suffered the most.
Absolutely, it's one of them that I live by. I don't like to go to bed knowing that, okay, there's a rift here, there's a problem, because I'm not going to rest comfortably. For one, I'm going to think about that all night, and I'm not going to get the rest that I need to get. Whenever there's an open issue, it's hard for me to let it go. So it's very important to me, and I always try to, no matter what the issue is, it's something I always try to do is, before we go to bed, I'm still going to say, I love you, and I'm still going to let it be known, even if we're kind of in disagreement about something. I'm going to let it be known that love is still there, and I just feel like that's the right thing to do, and that scripture has always kind of led me to that. And for me, it's very important to quickly resolve our issues. I don't like to let anything hang and just bug me and pester me, right? So anytime we have an issue, I like to get it resolved quickly, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're kind of a little quicker to say sorry than I am.
I am. I could because even if I feel like, because sometimes you do want to just be mad.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I feel like I'm right, even though you'll vehemently disagree with that. But sometimes, even though I feel like I'm right, I'm like, is it so important to be right, or is it more important that we put this thing to bed before we go to bed, and then we can both get the rest that we want, and then in the morning, hopefully in the morning the issue isn't there anymore. And to me that's what's more important. If I'm right or wrong, it doesn't really matter. And in an argument, I think that's what we get hung up on, is who's right. I have a right to be mad. Odds are you both have a right to be a little mad at each other, right? I mean, we're not perfect, and we're always going to tend to be a little bit self-centered. So, if you're just looking for a scoreboard in a marriage of rights and wrongs, well, I mean, you're going to be keeping score a lot, but maybe your tally of the score isn't right. The other person's just trying to keep the peace and not say, "Hey, you're right," or "I was wrong." I don't know. It's not, marriage isn't a competition. So to me, it's less important about who's right or wrong. And then, let's figure out what the problem is. Let's figure out the best way to resolve it and move on, because the most important thing at the end of the day is that we are still married. Our marriage is strong, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who was in the right or who was in the wrong in the dumb argument you just had. And you're going to have dumb arguments in your marriage, but
yeah. And I'm not going to say that with Christ in your marriage you don't have issues, but I will say that we have less. I think there's more peace. I think we're more understanding. I think we are quicker to forgive, even myself. We're I think a lot more soft spoken with each other. You definitely love each other more in a Christ like way, the way he loves you when he's in your marriage. I can tell a huge difference in both of us.
yeah, I agree with that. I'm not a naturally soft guy.
No.
And it takes Jesus. It takes Jesus in my life to make me a little softer and make my heart a little softer. I have walls built up naturally to protect me from people that may damage my trust and things like that. So immediately I build up a wall in myself unless I let Jesus drive, and then Jesus seems to naturally give me that ability to be softer with people, to be more patient with people than I would be on my own, for sure. And it's the same way in a marriage. If I'm not letting Jesus drive, I'm a little more standoffish, and I'm more focused on if I'm right or wrong, or if I feel like I've been treated bad, or I didn't get my way, right? So it takes Jesus in my life, even on my own, to drive me towards being a better person and a softer person, and keep my heart open and not be afraid of getting that damage. Do you have anything built up like that? I mean,
yeah, I've spent my life very independent, not trusting people. I've had a lot of people leave in my life that's left me scared of relationship. We struggled with that a lot when we first got together. I was afraid you were going to leave, so kind of went through some periods where I would try to kind of sabotage things, because it was like if I ruined it, it wouldn't hurt as bad as if he did. And God helps that. He helps me to be able to trust more, to open up, to let my husband lead more, to be more of an accepting wife in the relationship and not be so independent, to be more of a couple and not just an individual person.
Right. Yeah. And for me, likewise, I mean, I don't need to be in control. I'm not that type of person. Right. But I like to know that we're sharing things equally and that we're doing things equally. And I see that when Jesus is driving, we are the two wheels in the back, equally just rolling along, with the big wheel in the front, driving the things forward. Right, that's where the pedals are. It's driving us forward, and we're just along for the ride. But if we're trying to drive from the back, one of us is trying to drive from the back, and the other one's not quite doing that. We got a sideways tricycle. Yeah. So when Jesus is in control, everything is just moving exactly like it. We're in perfect harmony in the back. And like she said, it's not always It's not always like that, but it's not because of Jesus. It's because of us, right? One of us maybe really listen and the other not so much, and then it could swap and vice versa. But when we're both in sync and we're both letting Jesus drive and we're just in tune, everything goes forward perfectly. It's smooth. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And there's been ups and downs in our life where we haven't done that. But over the last 20 years, I think both of us would tell you that when we let Jesus drive, it's a much better life, because we're not trying to control it. We're not trying to drive it ourselves. Jesus knows where we're going to go already. We don't, so we can't. He's got the GPS. He's got the map. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of old, so I used to look at a map and figure out where I was going to go. So, but Jesus has the map or the GPS or the Siri, whatever's telling him where to go. He's got it and we don't. And so if we don't let him drive, we're going to end up lost. And we're just two wheels going in opposite. The tricycle is going to crash and we're just two wheels going in opposite directions in the back. And, if you're having problems in your marriage, and like I said, we've had them, we've been there. Our marriage hasn't been perfect, but we are focused. We're focused on Jesus. Jesus is driving this thing now, and if you're having troubles in your marriage, trust me when I tell you that you don't have to look for anything special, anything other than just finding Jesus, just seeking Jesus out for your marriage. Pray to him about your marriage. Pray to him about your spouse. If your spouse is wayward, it doesn't just mean give up on them, right? So Jesus doesn't give up on us. Pray for your spouse and pray, because I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen, and I've seen God change hearts. And he wants your marriage to succeed. He really does. He put you together with your spouse for a reason, and he doesn't want you to abandon it. He doesn't want you to not succeed. He wants to build it up. He wants to make it strong, because that was his intention when he put it together. When you both said I do, that was what he wanted to do, was drive you forward successful. But you've got to focus on him to do that. And if you think, well, I've done too much bad stuff for my marriage to succeed. I've done too much. I've went too far. There is nothing that God can't do. Jesus healed the blind. Jesus healed the woman with the issue of blood. Jesus healed the lame. Jesus healed people that were infected with leprosy, had demons, whatever it was. There was nothing too big where Jesus was like, well, I can't do that. He had no limits. Don't limit God, because he is limitless. And if you go to him and you ask him to help your marriage, he will help your marriage. If you ask him to help your spouse, he will help your spouse. Just know that it happens in his time. Sometimes it gets tough, and you think, man, this is never going to happen. But you can't think like that. You have to speak what you want to happen in your marriage. If you want your marriage to turn around, speak it into it. Plead the blood of Jesus over your marriage, and he will be faithful to help you and fix it. But you have to be open, and some things may have to change about you, and some things may have to change about your spouse. But he can put it together if you're open to it, if you really seek him on it, and if you pray to him for it. He will be faithful to help you in that. He put you together for a reason. You agree with that?
I do.
Because we both seen each other. I've been wayward when she was good in her relationship with God. She's been wayward when I was good in my relationship with God. We've struggled in that back wheel position, right? But we finally figured it out.
Tricycles doing that.
We finally figured it out that we were on a tricycle, and that Jesus needs to be the big wheel, and it changed everything. So, and it can happen for you. If it can happen for us, it can happen for you. I guarantee you. So, I guess that's that's it for me. You got anything else?
Just if you feel like there's any struggles in your relationship, seek God and get deeper in your personal relationship with him. I think the closer you get with him, the closer your entire relationship and your marriage and everything's going to get, because he's going to guide you and he's going to give you exactly what you need to give to your spouse, and everything will fall into place. But you can't just automatically blame the other person. I think it starts with you and your relationship, and just start there.
So, look, today our advice is get off your bicycle because it's wobbly. You need that third wheel. You need that third wheel in there. Get on your tricycle. Get back on your tricycle and let that big wheel drive you forward. Let Jesus be in control, and everything else is going to be just fine. And it really, that applies to everything: your marriage, your finances. If you're listening to Jesus, even when it seems crazy, because I'm telling you, with the tithing and the finances and stuff, sometimes it seems crazy for me to give 10%, because there's been with a past shaky marriage, right? Sometimes there's some bad financial decisions in there, and some issues that come along with that. So tithing sometimes seems like an insurmountable task, but be faithful with God, and he'll be faithful with you. So that applies to finances. It applies to your marriage. It applies to your parenting and your kids. Listen to God in everything, and all of it, you'll see success in all of it. Yeah. And it'll just flow naturally the way that God intended for it to.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point, because I've noticed like a huge change in everybody in our household,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The kids and everything, just since things started turning around in our marriage. It's like
absolutely
everybody is different. Everybody spends more time together. Everybody's happier. Absolutely.
Because we're not all trying to do our own thing, and everybody wanting to do their own different thing. We're unified, with God leading it. Like I said, it all falls into place, and we all are the right will that we're supposed to be. And it's just great, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Like it takes so much worry out of your life when you just trust God, because even in the times that are dark, doesn't mean you won't go through any storms, but you trust God to bring you through it. Even when it's dark, you trust God to shine a light, and it takes away a lot of stress, a lot of worries, because you've spent all this time worrying about this, worrying about that, trying to control this or that. When you do it on your own, you're trying to take it all on. When you let God lead that, it's a game changer, because there's just so much off of your plate. And even though you're not sticking your hand in there trying to control it, it's all working out just fine. And it's really amazing to see, because I always, when I would try to control things, I always just had it in my head that I had to be driving this, because I knew what was going to work and not work. I didn't have a clue. I didn't know I didn't have a clue until I gave it to God, and I see him do it, even though I don't know how he does it. Mm-hmm. It just shows me that it's because I'm driving blind. I don't know what's going to happen in my future. God does, and God can drive me right directly where I need to go. Mm-hmm. So it's a game changer to put your faith and your trust in God. And when you trust him, he takes care of you. When you put your faith in him, he takes care of you.
Yep.
So thank you guys for joining us on Better Together. We truly are better together, and we are better with God. So thanks for watching. Tune in next time. We'll try to do this. We'll try to do this at least every couple of weeks. So tune back in next time, and thank you guys for joining us today.